My name is Pastor Phil, and I'm the host of Third Rail Ministries. For those of you who may be new to this site, we gather daily, Monday through Friday, during the week, during this Advent time, to consider scriptures and see how they connect to the arrival of the Christ child, whose birth we celebrate during this month. We've been considering lately different prophecies from the book of Isaiah that tell us what we can look for in the Messiah's character, and because he's the Son of God, it also reveals God's character to us. So tonight, I'm just going to spend a little time talking about my favorite prophecy, if you will, or image, if you will, of the Christ child, and that is of the gentle shepherd. In the 40th chapter of the book of Isaiah, the 11th verse, I want to read you just a snippet out of this general section in which the prophet Isaiah is talking. He's talking about the sovereign Lord who's coming, and he's talking about how he's going to handle things and that kind of stuff. And then he says this: He, referring to the sovereign Lord, tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. He gently leads those that have young. In the nomadic history of Israel, there's probably no picture that is better understood than the picture of shepherding. For the people of Israel, the responsibility of tending the animals that provided their sustenance, that provided fabric for their very clothes, that provided money for they could purchase goods, that defined how wealthy or not wealthy people were, was ingrained in the mindset of that nation, going all the way back to Abraham, when God called him to gather all of his flocks and his people together and travel to a land that he was going to show him. In later Israel, the job of a shepherd tended to be, as they moved into and got a little more urban, the job of a shepherd was a very common, very hard-working job, and it grew to be kind of looked down upon by the owners of the flocks. For example, they didn't shepherd their own flocks, they paid people to keep an eye on their own flocks. But in the richness of the tradition of this nation, the job of a shepherd is really quite a remarkable one. It's often a solitary one, and it always involves many decisions. It's an incredibly responsible position because you're self-disciplined. You have to decide how well or how much you're going to put into this job. The responsibility of just getting a flock of sheep to whatever their destination was, even if it was over the hill to the next green pasture, was on time and intact, was large. The commitment of the shepherd was often defined and redefined as he would face many things that were often out of his control. He risked his life to protect the flock from animals that would want to devour the sheep. There were sometimes just plain human thieves that would want to winnow down the flock as well. There were range conditions that were often not ideal. You had to have food, you had to have water. And if you talk to people who understand sheep, their personality sometimes can be, for lack of a better phrase, dumb as rocks. They would get themselves into the craziest predicaments due to their curiosity or their just plain stubbornness. And often it required the shepherd to have to go out and find the lost sheep, which is mentioned in other parts of scriptures, talking about the commitment of Jesus to finding that sheep that needed to come back to the fold. Yet it is this image and this occupation that the prophet draws upon to illustrate how the Messiah is going to care for his flock. I love how the tender care of the shepherd is represented by the description given when the prophet says, he gathers the lambs in his arms and he carries them close to his heart. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. We often watch a show on TV with our young one about a veterinarian. And when you watch a show about a veterinarian, you see all animals that are sick and need to be healed or whatever. But you also get to watch the baby sheep being born, the baby calves being born, whatever. I don't know if there's anything quite so innocent as a baby lamb looking. You look at it, it's unstable on its feet, and it just bleats for its mama, and it needs to be nudged along. It's just cute as all kittens. Get out, sorry. But that's the image. Lambs gathered in his arms. He's carrying the lambs so that they don't have to get tired out from the walk back to the flock, if you will. And he carries them close to his heart. Not out there at an arm's length, but close. That's the nature of the Messiah, who we now understand to be Jesus Christ because we're post all this revelation, post the arrival of the Christ child. In fact, we've had the benefit of 2,000 years of the Holy Spirit being led into teachers and leaders of Christian movement to help us understand this text. And Jesus Christ is perhaps best characterized in the descriptor, the gentle shepherd. Perhaps the most famous of the Psalms is the 23rd Psalm. As a pastor, you often get into situations where the 23rd Psalm is requested to be read at the bedside in a hospital if someone is dying, or at the funeral side. It's a familiar psalm. If you don't go to church, you often know this psalm because it's so comforting, and you want it to be read during times of loss or fear, or to be reassured of the power and the care and the goal and the intention of God. It starts off with this wonderful statement, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." In a world that demands so much, that is full of things that would attack our spirit, our emotions, with all these different predatory people, demanding occupations, unexpected situations, it is very important to understand that there is a shepherd that not only wants to lead us, but wants to do so kindly and gently, wants to bring us to green pastures, wants to have us lie down beside still waters for his name's sake, wants to carry us in his arms, wants to keep his bosom close to his heart. So much of this world seeks to defraud the flock, steal some of the flock away, even misdirect the flock, to say nothing of the propensity of the flock to wander its own way just of its own stubborn willfulness. Yet our shepherd, our Jesus, not only promises to watch after the flock, he has already proven his commitment by sacrificing everything to who he was for our sake. In this simple prophecy of the Messiah being the gentle shepherd, we get this image and this valued role of a person who does nothing but watch out for the welfare and the well-being of the flock, for the sole purpose of keeping it intact. God demonstrates through this image of a gentle shepherd his loving character through the manner in which he has chosen to care for his sheep. This Christmas, you will struggle. This Christmas, you will be frustrated. This Christmas is coming at the end of a year that's been particularly challenging. And yet, even as you be aware of those struggles and those demands and things that would steal your emotional health, cause you to wonder about things spiritually, or even if you take a quiet moment and want to just step aside and pause and consider these things of God, I want you to know that the Christ child whose birth we celebrate at this time of the year is the gentle shepherd that was prophesied so long ago. Have a great day. Enjoy the weekend.